Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome from everyone in the Renewed Ambition team. Today, we have the first of two fascinating sessions, which will give you an insight into how the key stakeholders in the Belfast Region City Deal are working together to bring this once-in-a-lifetime investment to life. Tomorrow, we'll be looking at the Tourism and Regeneration Programme, while today we're focused on digital and innovation. Before we dive into the session, we want to hear from you. I would encourage you to join in today's discussion by using the hashtag #BRCityDeal. This deal is for everyone in Northern Ireland, and your input truly is vital, so please do get involved. The £1 billion deal will help harness additional investment, create new jobs, and accelerate inclusive economic growth across the wider city region. During today's session, the panel will explain the overall Belfast Region City Deal programme of investment before focusing on the Integrated Innovation and Digital Investment Programme, which targets £400 million worth of government and partner investment. That will go towards growing the resilient sectors such as health and life sciences, advanced manufacturing, and crucially, digital and creative industries. It'll create world-class centres of innovation excellence, supporting the delivery of more and better jobs by driving innovation and increased productivity. The Innovation Centres of Excellence will be underpinned by targeted investment in the region's digital capability, providing challenge funds to support our SMEs in their digital innovation journey, and a smart district to demonstrate our digital innovation capability. The Belfast Region City Deal investment would also deliver a programme of regional hubs and testbeds to spread our digital innovation capability and provide infrastructure enabling funds that will allow next generation digital capabilities to be deployed and tested. Partners today will also be discussing how they're collaborating to maximise the impact of the investment programme and by developing new approaches to deliver skills and apprenticeships in these high growth sectors. Now with us today, we have a stellar panel who have deep knowledge of the Belfast Region City Deal. We have Anne Donaghy, OBE, who's Chief Executive of Mid and East Antrim Borough Council. We have Dr. Jane Brady, MBE, who is Belfast Digital Commissioner at Belfast City Council. We have Scott Rutherford, Director of Research and Impact at Queen's University Belfast. And we have Damien Martin, who is Belfast Region City Deal Programme Director at Belfast City Council. Now, Damien, I want to turn to you first of all, just to set the scene for us. What is the Belfast Region City Deal trying to achieve, and what are the key elements of the planned programme of investment?
Okay, thanks, David. So, simply, it's about more and better jobs. It's about trying to drive up our productivity, and it's about trying to do that in a way that ensures inclusion. Our original ambition was, as part of high growth ambitions for the region, to deliver and support up to 20,000 new and better jobs. I guess we're retaining that ambition. We know, we're all honest with ourselves now, that some of that will be about growing back jobs that unfortunately have been or are going to be lost following the pandemic. But critically, the City Deal is about ambition. That's fundamental. It's about backing winners and saying where are the areas where we are strong, where we've research excellence, where we've key growth in our industry sectors, and going after that by leveraging all our investment. So we're retaining those ambitions. I think the other thing to say before going into the overall programme is to say it's a deal. This is not a grant. It's not something for nothing. This is the UK and NI government saying, we will invest with you in what you identify as those investments, capital investments that you think can really transform your economy, tackling some of the fundamental barriers, underinvestment in research and development, high levels of economic inactivity that we have, that will invest together. So you have the government departments, UK and NI government departments investing with Ulster University, Queen's University, or four further education colleges, all the councils up from Mid and East Antrim, Antrim Newton Abbey, Belfast, Lisburn, Castlereagh, Ards and North Down to Newry, Mourne and Down. So it's about all of us investing together. The governments are each investing 350 million. The partners have committed investment of 150 million. And then we need to leverage well beyond that from the private sector to be able to deliver all our ambitions in the deal. And alongside that capital investment, all the partners also have to say, how are we going to resource and support that with, for example, private sector investment and the investment of the partners themselves. So it's a deal, say, fundamentally focused on driving productivity, more and better jobs. And we've 4 pillars of investment. I'll not spend too much on innovation and digital because you're going to hear a lot about that today. But beyond saying, there's £400 million, over £400 million of government and partner investment going into the innovation pillar. And we're going to hear about some of the specifics. But, obviously, if you go to the City Deal website, you can find all about all those other types of investments on our high growth sector, including from partners, Ulster University, for example, who aren't with it today. The other thing, just to say, beyond innovation and digital, the other key pillars are investment, are tourism and regeneration. And thanks, David, for the plug for tomorrow. We're back again this time tomorrow to tell you more about our tourism and regen. Well, at least some of us, Anne, are back again tomorrow. And that's critical because as well as recognizing that, those areas which there is real growth potential for, it's also important to recognize how well we were doing in sectors like tourism. And we need to get back to that and we need to attract people back. But also this pandemic has shown the challenges for our towns and city centres. So we have a major programme of investment to try and revitalise and reimagine our town and city centres. We have investment in 3 major infrastructure projects to try and ensure that we create access, affordable access to those jobs and opportunities. And I also want to mention just our employability and skills programme. That's not a capital programme. That's about all the partners coming together with government and with industry and say, okay, if we're going after these sectors, if we're going after this growth, how do we do that in a way which provides the skills, creates new pathways, but also tries to ensure that, we've all got to realize the risks around inclusion. We can't just create jobs for graduates. We've got to create pathways and ways into these opportunities at all levels. As we talked about earlier, everybody recognizes the importance of digital now. So we've got to create skills and capabilities right across the program. So that's a quick summary and run through, Dave, of our £1 billion program. If you say it quickly, sounds okay. 10-year major program of investment, but that back to that first point, more and better jobs, productivity, inclusion, and ambition. That's what the City Deal is about.
A brilliant overview there, Damien. Can you drill down? We're always looking, from an industry point of view and an investment point of view. What are the opportunities for industry and investors as a result of this deal? Where can people get involved? Yeah,
and I hope many of the people on the call will already be involved. And I know Scott and Jane and others will be talking, and Anne, about how they've been reaching out to industry partners, because we need lots of different levels of involvement, investment. In some instances, in some of our global innovation centres, we need significant private sector partners there from the start, committing to co-invest with us. Otherwise, some of the proposals really won't have the sorts of impact we need. So hopefully some partners out there will already be in discussions around that. But we need much wider industry and business involvement in that. All our innovation hubs and innovation centres of excellence are based on models where we need industry co-investing, where they're members with our universities and our colleges. And as a result of that membership and their investment, then they're able to accrue the benefits from that. How can I apply artificial intelligence to my business? What are the opportunities for virtual production? How can we create remote sensing devices around health and well-being and start to operationalize those and test those out? So there are a range of opportunities for investment, but also we're prepared to invest. You'll hear from Jane about the funds that we're planning to create around challenge funds and infrastructure funds, where we're looking to co-invest with partners to tackle major societal challenges, whether around the application of artificial intelligence, around health and well-being, around sustainability and resilience. And say that's, again, today we're focusing on innovation digital, but clearly in other areas such as tourism, regeneration, skills, we need private sector partners working with us in all of those. And many of them, not just in terms of investing, for example, in regeneration, but also co-investing with us in terms of the models of operation, which are very much private sector and industry led.
Damien, I'm interested. Belfast Region City deal is its own body, but how does it work together with the other growth deals in Northern Ireland that are out there at the moment? Can you just explain that?
Yeah, well, I suppose the first point you'd expect me to say Belfast Region City deal was the first deal, and at that point we didn't know for sure if there were going to be a number of city growth deals. I think the Derry and Strabane deal, was significantly progressing, and we've been working for a number of years with them to try and ensure what's being planned in the Belfast Region City deal complements what's going on in that deal, and hopefully they're progressing soon to heads a term stage, which will be great news for all the city and growth deals. So at the start we didn't know that. We have been working, but since there was the announcement that there would be city and growth deals across Northern Ireland, we now have, as you would expect of government, some new structures for us to liaise and work together. So we have structures at local government level, and Anne will be involved in those, but also with our central government partners, because we're a small place. We need to share the learning. We need to make sure they're complementary. But we're off to a very good start, as well as those structures. We were also already developing some ideas for joint proposals and joint projects across the deals. So Jane was involved in creating a digital futures program, trying to get a new pathway into growth sectors with internships, as well as a program at our further and higher education colleges. And our view is, if something works in Belfast, if it makes sense anywhere else, fill your boots, do it everywhere. And that's exactly what happened. We're also looking at a cross-deal bid around for SME support, capital support, around investment in innovation and digital. And beyond that, and I'm sure Scott and others will touch on this, there's been a huge amount of work across deals and with industry across Northern Ireland. Many of our investments are about bringing benefits right across Northern Ireland. So there's been lots of discussion with industry and other deals about how do we make sure this opportunity is available across Northern Ireland? How do we make sure it's complementary with future investments? So a huge amount of time and effort is gone into making sure, but I suppose the fundamental point is back to that if something works in the Belfast region, if it works somewhere else, we're more than happy to share with the partners that we're working with all the time.
Really interesting, because collaboration really is part of the Belfast Region City
Absolutely.
deal, and not just within the deal itself, but with everything else. Listen, Damien, thanks so much for bringing us up to speed for that. We'll get back to you later on at the Q&A. And I want to turn to Anne, just to get a bit of an idea of how important the deal is to her region and to Northern Ireland, particularly in that digital innovation space. Anne, how do you feel the digital innovation pillars of the Belfast Region City deal will support economic growth post-COVID in Mid and East Antrim?
Okay, well, thanks, David, for having me on, and I'm very pleased to be here today. I have to say, digital in my own life has really moved on in the past year, and the panel were told this morning I'm actually speaking from the car, which I never thought I would be able to do. So here we go. Let's hope that the handbrake stays firmly in place. But I suppose, when COVID hit, I suppose digital become so much more important to all of our lives. And, it really, it created a real eye-opener, certainly for a lot of us, how important digital is for a world market and how important it is. I suppose what started off as a sprint from a COVID point of view has ended up in a marathon 1 year later nearly, and we're still dealing with that economic shock scenario. And for me, in dealing with recovery and growing the economy, we have, I suppose we have an economy in Northern Ireland that we need to get stability back into. There is a lot of fear out there in business. So I think that this city deal is a real boost of confidence, of belief, and of hope for our region. And I think that's hugely important. For me, it's completely up to the councils, to government, to industry itself, and the whole business community to give that hope to get a way forward. And certainly this is one of the tools that I believe is going to help us on that journey. There are, of course, lots of different tools out there. And, you know, where we sit at the minute, things like the grants and the furlough that government has been given, they are fantastic, but they are sticking plasters. So, you know, we need something for Northern Ireland and for this region that is actually going to build medium and long term our economy. And, you know, as Damien says, some of the jobs that we've lost, but I do believe that it will bring us into a whole new world, a new world of emerging growth sectors that we maybe wouldn't have been as brave to go forward to. I always believe things happen for a reason. Sometimes we don't see why. But you know, with every crisis, opportunity arises. And for me, the opportunity that has arisen through COVID and through this city deal is that we're now looking in more detail at manufacturing, the digital technology, including improving skills around that whole area. Industry 4 standards, robotics, automation, all of those things. And I suppose for me, the £1 billion investment that Damien has talked about, you know, and the partnership approach of Treasury, government, local councils, and importantly, the private sector coming together to transform our economy is, for me, a real generational opportunity. You know, you don't get opportunities like this coming along very often. And so, you know, we have got to, as leaders, make sure that we make the most of that. And for me, the digital innovation and the green tech is the way forward in terms of growing back our economy, David. And, you know, those three sectors are very well represented in this digital pillar. The funding from Treasury is 350, but we, as Damien says, there's a major amount of money, over 400 million going into this. And that is to create, for me, innovation, support entrepreneurship. And, you know, I often look back and in the 1950s, in the time of depression and recession, it's when innovation occurred most. When people are up against the wall, that's when we innovate the most. Must is a great master. And I always think back, you know, the sliced pan loaf that still is very popular to this very day was invented in the 1950s. Why? Because the housewife had to make that loaf go further. So innovation come to achieve that. You know, so I think that we need to use the money from City Deal and from digital innovation to actually support those people, to get the space and the time to innovate, to get those entrepreneurs, to get the money in behind them, to give the real once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to develop new technologies that are on the world stage. We are already doing this. You know, I look around me, you've like for Kanos as one example of, you know, the AI. You've got in my own area, you've got Obi, world leader in robotics, lean technology, you've got Caterpillar. You know, we already in Northern Ireland need to be very proud to know that we have some of the best companies, but this City Deal money is going to bring us to the new level and to bring us to that Industry 4 standard, etc. You know, we have some of the best universities in the world, I suggest. And you know, I'm glad to see Scott is here from Queen's, but we have Queen's, we have a University of Ulster with the colleges, and you know, we're working as a City Deal with those institutions to make sure that we are the money spent through universities and colleges are supporting the skill pipeline for the jobs that we're going to create in City Deal, and that the money is used to produce better productivity and innovation. And it is absolutely right that this pillar is led by the universities, because that is where it all begins. And for me, for example, the Advanced Manufacture Innovation Centre is at the heart of driving the Industry 4 standard right across all our manufacturers. That will leave us world leaders in manufacturing, and you know, and we can only achieve that by working together. So I see City Deal as a critical cog in the wheel, David, of building our economy in the medium and long term as economic recovery.
And in terms of those City Deal investments, that some of them you've referenced, some that Damien's talked about there, how do you see them supporting Mid and East Antrim in its bounce back? Are there any specifics that are really going to help? I presume the manufacturing sector will be a big one.
Well, manufacturing, the City Deal's already been supporting us, and we have just are working towards with private sector, with the universities, Queen's, with City Deal partners, to work on hydrogen, to work on the energy sector. And, certainly one of the projects that we're working on in digital is it's called I4C, but what it really is, it's about an iLab, it's about getting the future training, the skills, and also creating a demand for the products. So, it's not just about creating hydrogen. And certainly, I have working with Wrightbus and with Kilroot Energy to actually produce the hydrogen. There's no point in producing hydrogen if you haven't got a market for it. So part of the City Deal is working to actually, I suppose, support people and handhold them through, that change. I look at the industry, the electric industry, where they actually, and the gas industry, where they talk about people getting, the transfer from one to the other. So really, the City Deal has to help to do that.
And that I4C Innovation Centre and your focus on hydrogen really fits into that green recovery angle that
yeah.
City, and everybody's looking at the moment.
I suppose for the green recovery, like I believe that Boris's 10-point plan and the UK industrial revolution, that whole green industry, it's critical to our economic future, David. And there's £14 billion UK wide and 250,000 jobs. Now, our City Deal needs to get in behind that and work towards travelling towards that zero carbon in 2050. And, we are already doing that. And people have already moved. I look at Amazon. Whilst the government's target for zero carbon is 2050, Amazon's is 2040. So, this journey has begun. The City Deal couldn't have happened at a better time. This digital innovation pillar is critical to that, because all that green tech stuff that is needed is all about digital innovation. So therefore, we are on the right path at the right time. And, whether it be by plan or accident, I cannot say, but here we are. And I think we have got to really absorb that. That industry is driven not only by the economy, but by the environment. And, the world is changing, and it will be unacceptable not to be there. So, we have got a real golden ticket, and the City Deal is about preparing and accelerating our businesses to actually get in on that industry. And, as I said earlier, we're already working on the hydrogen, but there's other examples across the City Deal where we're working on the green tech stuff. And a City Deal is about, for me, that innovation centre that will be in St. Patrick's Barracks. And within that, there will be that iLab will be there to focus on developing infrastructure, to support SMEs, to actually develop clean tech and technology, to then get in the marketplace. It's about that partnership approach of all the partners in City Deal to help them to do that. It's also about providing innovators, experienced people and engineers to help prototype and commercialize the activity that our companies need to do, and to get the foothold in the marketplace, and those engineers-led maker spaces that Damien spoke about, being accessible to the small businesses, because it's not just about the big businesses. We have to take the small businesses through the City Deal, through the maker spaces, to give them the skills, the ambition and the innovation through the digital pillar to actually get those green economy products on the market. And as I said earlier, we have already commissioned the Mid and East Antrim through industry, public sector, training experts. I delivered a bespoke training hydrogen hub, and that's to do two things. number one, to grow the skills to produce the green, the blue, the brown hydrogen, and have the skilled people there for the Joe Bamfords to have. And we're working with them, because there is no point if we don't have skilled people. And that's where all of our partners come on, to make sure that we do that. And then on the other side is to create the demand for the hydrogen by supporting companies to make that switch. So for me, hugely exciting, David, hugely exciting.
Hugely exciting. So important to look and look after and make sure that the small and micro businesses are brought along in that whole direction of travel. And listen, thanks so much. I know you're under a bit of time pressure and you have to rush off. So thanks so much for your fulsome support from a car today, which not many people say it's done.
I've achieved, David, what I thought I couldn't. So it's a good day. So, but thank you very much for listening. And you know, I'll finish off by saying this is for me a really, really exciting project to be involved in. A deal that is going to make a difference to the lives of so many people, not only across Belfast city region area, but also across Northern Ireland. So, and you know, it's well done to all the partners, because it's been a tough few years, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm really excited to be on the journey. So, thank you, everyone.
And thanks so much for your effort and for your contribution today. It's been great. Thank you. I now want to turn to Jane. Jane, in your role as Digital Commissioner, you have sight of the potential of this deal and really have a great insight into it. Can you first of all tell me about the importance of digital and innovation within the deal and what opportunities it provides for future growth?
Thanks, David. Delighted to be here. And I guess you can get some of that energy and excitement following Anne, both on her digital innovation journey. And I took up the role as Digital Innovation Commissioner during COVID, and we've all seen the impact that's had both at a societal and an economic level. But actually, one of the bright aspects of it is it's proven the business case for digital innovation. And in fact, those sectors have been thriving despite our current challenges. Very welcome news today of the announcement of 200 jobs for KPMG in those digital sectors, creating 14 million impact to the economy. But I guess it hasn't come from anywhere. So it's come from, in the city deal, the Belfast Region City deal, many years of investment in the partners in terms of areas that we need to invest in the economy, a deep analysis of where our key sectors are, where the key opportunities are, and where our key research excellence is. But it's also based on, I guess, what Northern Ireland and the region is really good at, and that's that grassroots tradition of hard work, entrepreneurship and resilience, and something we're seeing really to the fore, especially during the last 12 months. And I guess to Damien's point, you know, this isn't a case for giving out grants or subsidising. This is a case for investment. And when you look in the data, and I'm an engineer, so the data is really important to me, every £1 that is spent in supporting investment into R&D, and this is analysis by Invest Northern Ireland, creates a return of sevenfold, so £7 GVA. So this is a case for investment and a very high output of return. And it seems to me, over the last number of months, the case for investment in Northern Ireland and the Belfast region is becoming even more emphatic. There's a number of very significant stats coming out in the sector. Queen's, and we've got Scott here talking regarding the sector later, but for the second year in a row, it was ranked as #1 of the most entrepreneurial universities in the UK. And Ulster is 14th of the top 100 universities in the UK. So these are, as Anne pointed out, centres of excellence globally recognised. #2 in that ranking was Cambridge. So for every pound invested, Queen's gives the best return in terms of entrepreneurial impact. And that's again showing how we are able to deliver that return on investment impact. And that is what the city deal is. It's providing investment with a return, both in terms of economic return and output, output in terms of productivity, output in terms of new and better jobs and inclusion metrics. I guess we've seen over the past number of years that business investment in R&D has also increased. It's up 300% over the last decade and 200% in terms of the research excellence interactive firms. So we know that our industries want to engage in research and excellence, but we know there are barriers, particularly with the pandemic and cash constraints that they have. So the City Deal provides us a really strong opportunity to support them in that digital and innovation journey. And even when we looked at the analysis, and again, looking back to those stats to see how vibrant the tech sector has, we were at 82% of recruitment levels for pre-COVID. and 23% of all our jobs advertised in 2019 were in digital and innovation roles, and that is the highest in the UK. And we also have the highest cost of salary to cost of living. So this is the best place to be a digital innovation career within the UK as well. Again, more stats coming out. We're ranked as one of the only the UK cities outside Cambridge to make the top 10 tech cities of the future. And that's based on the opportunity for our excellence, the vibrancy of our sector, and again, the ability for us to provide that critical return. And we also benefited that we have a really strong digital infrastructure sector. And again, that's been shown by how resilient many of our FDI organisations have been in terms of providing those services with a post-pandemic lens on, and how they've been able to compete globally as well. That's going to be further augmented by the investments we're making in terms of infrastructure and the rollout of the Project Stratum platform as well. So when 9 months into this role, and when I look towards the impact we can have with digital innovation as part of recovery, it would be the city deal that you would develop as part of that strategy for economic recovery. It gives the best multiplier in terms of economic impact and productivity, but it's also investing in those critical sectors which are important to Northern Ireland, our advanced manufacturing sectors, which have been so critical over the last 100 years, but which need to embrace those new technologies, such as Industry 4.0, digitization, robotisation, and I guess can provide that kind of key future-proof. Very significant investment in terms of our sectors in life and health sciences, which have been really at the core of the pandemic, and our universities dealing and addressing those issues. And again, those burgeoning sectors in the creative media areas as well. The great announcement just last month from Netflix and supporting those burgeoning areas, which provide really significant opportunity to develop new sectors of the future. So I guess it's a story of hope and opportunity and return on investment that digital innovation has within the Belfast region city team.
Obviously, some huge opportunities. That you're all over there, and there's so many. But can you give us a couple of key sectors within digital and innovation that are going to be kind of important in building the companies and maybe the industries of the future?
Yes, absolutely. And I guess this goes down to the building the business case for the Belfast region city deal. So there was really a very significant amount of analysis in terms of interpreting what are our key sectors. And it's by no mistake that 3 out of our 5 sectors within the Belfast region city deal and centres of excellence are based on life and health sciences. So those are in the big data, the AI of healthcare through our One Health initiative and GII. Those are also through the connected health aspects of healthcare through our partners in Ulster University, and also through the clinical testing environment, which we've seen obviously has been so critical and important. And very importantly, these lead to a kind of synergistic opportunity as we look forward about how important the data and those engagement aspects are from health and life sciences. And those have been really an area where Northern Ireland has punched above its weight with very little investment. We've got some really strong Indigenous companies in that space as well. We've got Almac, we've got Randox, we've got many companies playing in that sector. So we have burgeoning capability and we have a really strong emerging spin-out capability in life and health sciences. Again, advanced manufacture, big investment in terms of the city deal, but a really strong industry within Northern Ireland, 45,000 people employed within that sector, but big challenges ahead for that sector in terms of embracing Industry 4.0, digitization, robotisation, and also embracing the challenges and opportunities that comes with clean growth and net zero carbon. So that's a critical focus that we have within the digital pillar to support those transitions to those clean tech industries as well. And Anne talked really eloquently how we're making sure that those are diverse and pushed out, not just for the big organisations, which have very significant R&D budgets, but they're focused on those SMEs who are struggling more than ever to embrace in terms of innovation during the last 12 months. And I guess I talked about those other areas in terms of the new opportunities, the creative media campuses built on our Screen Media Innovations Lab, and the real opportunities there are to provide integration of our existing technologies and skills, but providing kind of future-proof into those augmented reality sectors. And I guess other key aspects, and within those areas is where we have been genuinely world-class. And I'd like to call out just in terms of our cyber space as well, and the long-term investments that were made 15 years ago in that sector, And some of this is looking towards the future and actually making judgments on what will be those key sectors of the future. And that was a judgment that was made in that area of cyber, that this was going to become a critical aspect. And now Northern Ireland is the #1 destination for US FDI employment. We're 2,000 staff in that sector, hoping to go to 5,000 within the next 10 years. And actually, it's been called out as one of the 8 centres of excellence globally in terms of driving that clusters and those developments and pieces. So it's critical for us to make sure that those deep investments in research and innovation, and where we are truly excellent, have that trickle-down effect into the economy as well as we build that cluster and focus. I guess to say that also we need to be focused in that, David. So this is not just a spread bet in terms of all technologies that come up. So the City Deal provides natural areas of focus in terms of selecting those areas where we are uniquely placed and align with our industries, which have unique opportunities as well. So we're focusing into those sectors because we are a small economy and we need to put money and backing where we know we can be competitively and globally competitive, and which are those industries of the future.
Jane, you've talked about sectors there, and you mentioned earlier on about in your introduction about KPMG. Can you give us some other kind of practical examples of the success of this growing digital sector in practical terms?
Yes, I think Damien referenced it earlier. Taking up this role, we looked in terms of the strategies, and these are very long-term, 10-year strategic developments, and they're in the right direction, undoubtedly developing the right impact. But one of the critical areas that our businesses had seen was the access to digital skills. And that was 85% of our business 2019. So that was the biggest thing holding them back. And we knew coming into the middle of last year that actually there would be issues in terms of labour market constraints in recruiting those skills. So we wanted to I guess, look towards that opportunity and challenge and see how we can measure those. So we delivered a concept called the Digital Futures Platform, and that was looking at our under 25s, those young people coming out of university, out of the workplace, who didn't have a digital background, but who we knew were capable of being retrained into those future skills and programs. And we worked with our 4 FE colleges, our higher education establishments, and our department communities and enterprises and all our council partners to come up with a joined up proposition to say, okay, let's provide some new model of reskilling those graduates who are potentially becoming available into the specific sectors in terms of cyber and cloud that we need for the future. So that was funded and backed by DFE, again, with a partnership-led approach that took the initial first cohort of 55 grads into that programme. Some of those came from a refugee background, so truly inclusive in terms of what that was delivering. They've now gone through a 10-week training programme in those key sectors. But we also knew that coming out of that piece in the start of this year, the opportunities may not lie there. So we also supported a work placement with industry. And again, for those 55 places, we were oversubscribed by a factor of 5 for the graduates, but we were also oversubscribed by the employers willing to take those positions on. So actually, those grads have gone through that scheme and are now with many of our micro and SME businesses being retrained into those key sectors again through that placement piece. So we think that's an area where we feel we can really significantly replicate and scale a model. And I guess it's through that partnership-led, that joined-up approach that Anne talked about and that Damien has as well. So working through to understand what the issues are on the ground, to be industry-led, to provide those solutions, and to act with some speed as well in terms of delivering those solutions. And I guess just in terms of that sector, you look towards the proportion of roles that we have and where we can need, it will be really critical that we address the skills and technology need within that workforce if we are to realise the full capability of our ambitions.
Jane, thanks for that. Such powerful examples there. You're talking about if we can help our own talent to go into our own digital and innovation companies and help them. But if we can also help refugees that come into this company, it's such a powerful message from the Belfast Region City Deal. Jane, I'll come back to you in a second, but I want to move on to Scott. Because we've talked a lot about how important universities are in rolling out the City Deal and as part of the collaboration. Scott, can you give us an idea of how universities like Queen's work with businesses across Northern Ireland to sharpen their innovative edge?
Sure. Yes, of course, David. And I think it's worth noting just how passionate each of us are about this deal, and how actually our shared ambition means that kind of a lot of my points actually are the same sort of thinking that kind of city councils will have, or kind of private sector partners. So I'll try and bring maybe just a few kind of examples and distinctive points. But and I think it's worth noting that universities operate, I guess, both in the short term, but also in the long term as well. So in terms of those kind of short-term ways we work alongside industry partners, it's been increasingly important in recent years that I guess we listen to those challenges of industry, that we make sure that there's a forum that ensures there is very, very clear dialogue and clear kind of pull on what those challenges are that are at the forefront of industry's minds. And our job as a university is to make sure we are responsive and are agile in terms of how we kind of address those issues. So ways we do that would be exchange of people is often a great way of exchanging ideas, making sure that there's common understanding. We have programs where we would be UK leaders actually in exchanging kind of recent graduates or associates into companies who will work on programs over an 18-month kind of period or so. And that's quite a sort of short-term, near-term kind of tactical engagement. We also have kind of major R&D centres actually on campus. We find that lots of companies now want to ensure that their kind of industrial scientists will work alongside our researchers in a laboratory or in a kind of university environment, to make sure that there is a strong degree of shared ideas, of shared risks, etc., shared opportunities that are both across industry and academia. We, I think as Jane hinted at there, we're also kind of long-term thinkers, I guess, in the economy. We need to think of the things that kind of businesses haven't really even thought of yet, and have that sort of long-term sort of horizon. And that kind of cyber cluster that Jane talked about was really something that 15 years ago was not seen as something that was necessary or important, but it's that long-term kind of vision and commitment that universities bring that kind of enables those new clusters to build and develop. And that, I think, if you look across the globe, be it in America or Europe or further afield, etc., you will always find that those successful areas have a university as a sort of anchor in that region. They bring the knowledge, the ideas, the skills and the talent that really makes that economy tick. And our job as a university, our job at Queen's, is to make sure that where we have roots, we are deeply embedded, and we can attract businesses, help local companies grow, make sure that there's accessibility to our ideas and to our talent. And it has to be innovation that is where we compete in Northern Ireland. You cannot hope to compete on cost and those types of offerings anymore. It's got to be on talented people, talented ideas, etc. And that is at the heart of the university, I think. And then finally, I suppose we, are creators of new businesses as well. We at Queen's have a portfolio of around 40, 45 companies a year in our portfolio of companies, and we would maybe have about kind of 5 or 6 new businesses each year that are formed. And our job is to help those companies grow in Northern Ireland, help those companies take down roots here and scale here in Northern Ireland, and make sure that the disruptive kind of businesses of the future have a place in Northern Ireland's economy. So, I guess in short, we, our partners in terms of industry partners, we have kind of big centres and exchange of ideas at those boundaries. We act as an anchor in terms of attracting companies and growing companies here in the region, and then we are creators of new businesses as well, I guess.
Yeah, it's clear that you guys in particular are just key in that whole innovation side of things. Can you give us an idea of some of the planned investments in innovation that are being led by the universities, and how those can help to recover from the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, so the city deal has been a kind of process where you've had to, as others have said, had to look at kind of key areas of the economy of Northern Ireland, look at key capabilities in the universities and really have a prioritised approach to them. The projects that I'm closest to would be in sectors such as health, in manufacturing, and in agriculture. Those are the three kind of backbone areas of the economy here. And there's a golden thread. Every deal has to have that golden kind of thread, and it's that sort of data, digital technology, unsurprisingly, that is the thread that knits those projects, inclusively, I guess, as part of the deal. So in terms of some of those details in those sectors, there's a project that we're working on in terms of clinical trials in Northern Ireland. How can we attract big pharma and bring more trials into Northern Ireland? And of course, there's a real kind of healthcare benefit outcome in terms of doing that. More people accessing more treatments is good in terms of the health of our society. But I think in terms of COVID, it's a really interesting time in terms of clinical trials. It's very kind of disruptive at the moment, and there's a real opportunity in Northern Ireland and some of our kind of companies in the health data space to see how kind of data and digital technologies, I guess, can really help kind of shape how trials are done in the future. That slow process of getting treatments into market, as COVID has showed us, has completely blown that out of the water. And we've got some incredibly smart companies here in Northern Ireland and opportunities to bring more trials here based on our research expertise that I think could make a massive, massive difference here in Northern Ireland. I suppose in terms of data analytics, we have a project in that space as well, which is building on that cyber capability at Queen's, building on our security, our wireless technologies, and our analytics capabilities. And it's looking at the ways in which we've worked with sectors like the financial services, where we maybe have looked at how fraud is detected in sort of trading situations, and see how we can apply that kind of thinking, that sort of technology, into kind of new sectors in terms of healthcare, which is increasingly driven by data and computational capability, and then how we could use that in terms of how we farm more sustainability in the future, how we can look at how the nutrition we put into ourselves is affecting the healthcare outcomes in the future. And then finally, advanced manufacturing, as we heard earlier, is crucially important in Northern Ireland's economy moving forwards. We need to be a region that makes things. You cannot entirely have a services sector. It's crucially important, of course, but making stuff, exporting stuff is vitally important in any modern economy. And as carbon net zero affects those businesses, as automation and as digital and data hits those businesses, it's critical we have a facility that helps those businesses trial those new technologies and de-risk those investments that they could make in their own businesses as they tackle these challenges in the future. So those are the ways in which we're trying to use City Deal investment at that interface of where we've got great research capability with kind of key sectors that are facing real kind of seismic shifts in the future.
Yeah, and Queen's played a key role in that, in just keeping Northern Ireland at that critical edge and a sharp edge of innovation. Scott, how do you think that the City Deal will help us be more successful in kind of levelling up our economy by securing finances from, for instance, the UK government that will support investment in R&D by businesses here?
Yeah, I think a lot's made of this sort of levelling up agenda. The kind of financial crash of 2008 kind of saw, a recovery of sorts, but it saw that largely driven from the southeast of England, and it did see kind of areas of considerable growth that kind of masked, a fair amount of inequality across the UK as a whole. So this deal is, in my view, it's twofold really. I think first of all, it makes the opportunity for a new way of working. It makes opportunity where there's shared ambition, there's shared goals, and there's a real understanding of place. There's a real understanding of what makes this region tick, what the opportunities are. And I think that kind of shared approach moving forwards is the way in which we will make a big difference in Northern Ireland. And I think as well, it gives a major investment opportunity to put the infrastructure or the plumbing in place that means that, as the funding flows, that funding can reach all across the UK and not just reach those areas that it has normally hit, which in London, Cambridge, Oxford, those areas. And there's a lot of evidence that shows that there is a disproportionate kind of investment in certain parts of the UK, and yet it is missing real opportunity. As James has articulated, that there are lots of great kind of reasons why Northern Ireland should be invested in, and I think City Deal gives us that kind of baseline infrastructure investment, and it gives us a very clear focus and clear proposition around why the Belfast region is a great kind of investable proposition.
Certainly does. Thanks, Scott, for that. Really interesting. I want to open the conversation up a little bit now. We've made a lot in the last few minutes, in the last hour or so, about how collaboration is key to making the City Deal really work and to maximise its impact. Can you, maybe Damien, it would be good if you could give us an idea about how that collaboration is working in practice between universities, between public sector, between private sector? You're on mute there, Damien.
Yeah, sorry. It's not like me to be quiet, but I think the first thing to say is it's not a bit easy. I mean, we shouldn't kid ourselves. I think all of us now in the City Deal know that on one way, the opportunity is great. We believe in the outcomes. I think you really get that sense of, I think that point Scott makes about place, a sense of place and focus and where we all target in our efforts. But at the same time, I think we all know the easiest thing is often to do your own thing. So it's hard work collaboration, but we do have a big advantage in that we're not that big. We're really quite a small place, so we can work together, and share what's going on. But it has been hard work. We have really put a lot of time and effort into creating those processes that bring people together, that try and keep a focus. I think one of the big challenges we're all facing at the moment, because it has been tough through, it's the least of the problems, but it's hard working through this environment in partnership. It's not easy. The digital capability has enabled that, but it's not easy. And we need to keep momentum, because we're, people like Jane and Scott are talking to industry. They're trying to, draw in investment and get strong commitments. And suppose industry then wants to see delivery, that we get to the next stage, that we actually show that we can deliver the ambitions in the City Deal, which is why we're pushing so hard to be able to sign our deal document. The money of the City Deal is there, it exists, but we're not just quite at that point where we're in the delivery, and we need to get there. I think the other bit that's really heartening and is we're already starting to see the spin-offs and the examples of delivery. So we're actually just about to get into delivery for City Deal, but as Jane said, we've already got programs across skills and digital. We've also, cross-deal bids opportunities for other funds which have just come out of the partners working together, clear focus on the sectors, on the goals, and making pitches for significant further investment well out City Deal. And we're not waiting for the City Deal to do that. So it is, at times, it's tough, but whenever you see the scale of the opportunity, it makes it worth it. And I suppose we've now built that core, because again, early on, for example, we didn't have a Northern Ireland executive. That was a real challenge. That sort of lack of political leadership. Obviously, that's come back now with much stronger relationships now with the Northern Ireland government departments and Invest NI and Department of the Economy. And early on, again, that was difficult because they didn't, in a way, have the political support and political leadership. So that's back, and it was huge when the Northern Ireland Executive announced their 350 commitment for the City Deal, and then the commitment to the other city and growth deals. I think that gives everybody confidence we're in this together for the long term. So tough gig at times, but actually, I suppose after a couple of years at it, you really start to see the benefits of it, and that's what helped keep the momentum going.
Scott, collaboration is pretty much a key part of your job as from a university point of view. I suppose the City Deal has just helped to pull all that together and a focus on collaboration between every level of economy, public sector, and indeed yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just sort of having a look back, and I think we must have spoken to over kind of 400 businesses over the last 18 months or so, and that's been hugely kind of exciting, listening to what those companies say and what their needs are. And I think that is really what is, as I said earlier, is at the heart of the City Deal, is that sort of listening and that sort of platform of dialogue. As Damien says, it takes time sometimes to sort of synthesize those views and focus those views down, but it is a highly kind of valuable process in its own right. I think as well, the importance on the skills side can't be underestimated. I think we need to increasingly recognise, and this is what the City Deal is great at, is that it brings lots of different components, how people are connected, how regions are connected, the skills needs and the innovation needs into a single kind of package. And that is really, really important from a university's point of view. And it certainly has opened up opportunities of working across further education and higher education, and I think it's important we recognise that industry doesn't necessarily see each of the constituent kind of capabilities or providers. It's just a challenge they face, and our job is to somehow respond regardless of the different types of barriers or silos that may exist, and fix those challenges as best as we can. And I think the kind of work we've heard recently, in terms of reskilling and offering ongoing training is something that kind of universities are increasingly involved in now, in terms of how we get us out of our skills base out of this COVID pandemic situation that we find ourselves in.
Very much so. And Jane, I want to come to you. And this is, I suppose, a cultural question, really. But how do we ensure that the innovative culture that we've been known for in Northern Ireland for years, and there's many great examples of it, how do we ensure that that's embedded in every level of the economy, and maybe particularly looking at the digital sector?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, David, we have a really strong evidence base of that kind of entrepreneurial spirit and resilience. And I would say, actually, within the digital innovation sector, because it is so vibrant, what has maybe stopped us in the past was that risk adversity, but actually with the sector is so burgeoning and so important. It's proven that kind of there's a very low risk decision to be involved in those entrepreneurial activities. For me, it's about building those clusters, those areas where we have those sectors, and that's about a mix between bringing the right FDI elements in, having the right research skills, and having the right mix of Indigenous SME companies. So it's not a trade-off one or the other, and sometimes it's seen as that in that sector, that there is a balance to be had in terms of creating those clusters. I think cyber is a really interesting example in that, and also in that fintech and regtech space. One of the really entrepreneurial companies, Indigenous Fintree, grew 75% over last year, took on 300 people during COVID. Again, blended with those expertise that we have in cyber, financial services, and that blend in that ecosystem. So I think it's through those focus on those key areas where we can be significant and provide a competitive advantage, and creating the right ecosystem. And that's about a joined up approach with FE colleges, HE colleges, FDIs, SMEs and micros, and making that machinery work, and along with those skills pieces. So the skills programs we delivered, over the last 6 months in those rapid courses were in terms of those cyber and those cloud services, the areas that we need to be key. So it's creating that right ecosystem. Also a key part of it, what we're delivering, particularly in the digital pillar, is actually having our challenge funds focused at encouraging those routes to innovation. So specific interventions defined with those specific areas where we have strong industry clusters and opportunities, and aligned where we have research excellence. So providing the stimulus, not just to say this is the direction of travel, but we're also going to support you in terms of delivering on that investments. We're going to invest alongside you. We're going to provide funding to create those right ecosystems as well. And I guess on top of that, we need to be output based. We need to deliver products in terms of GVA. We need to get that mix in place. And I would say that if you were looking at kind of what we have now in terms of recovery, we have done a 3-year thesis on what we're brilliant at and where our sectors are. We have proven the resiliency of your digital innovation sector. We have all the hard yards done. And actually leveling up comes at a really solid time for us, because we have a really compelling proposition to say this is how we can deliver a return to the UK as part of that funding instrument they're giving us, Plus, because the city deal is forced those partnership models that the team have just talked about, we have actually been collectively able to go and say, and this is the investment case you can make. So new monies that flow into new partnership models, but on already deep analysis of where we know the areas of opportunities are and where we know we can deliver differentiated value.
Super. Thanks, Jane. Time's ticking on. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to some of the questions that have come in. Anybody that sent questions in, we will endeavour to get back to you as soon as possible and answer them on your behalf. We haven't long left, so I'd just firstly like to say a huge thank you to our panellists for giving up their time this morning and contributing so fully. It's rare that we get a panel like this that is so passionate, but I think it just underlines the potential for this deal, and just to see it really comes across from each and every one of you. So thank you so much for participating so fully. I'd also like to thank you all for tuning in to the webinar today. If you're able to join us tomorrow at the same time, at 10 a.m. we'll have another esteemed panel, and I can assure you of that. I can't guarantee anybody coming to you from the car, but we'll certainly do our best. And we'll be looking at the tourism and regeneration programme arm of the Belfast Region City Deal. Again, thanks so much to the panel. You've been fantastic. Thank you for now. Thank you again for everyone that's participated. Goodbye and stay safe.
Thanks.